Mad. I'ma feed 5-4 fun, money making animal. Don't put me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ask Mad Show. I am Mad, your Duke of Tribal Kingdom, international man of leisure, the Caesar of the universal players, your secret agent man giving you the game on all things. And I had a show, not last show, but the show before that, where I was talking about Elon Musk alleged $1 trillion status, and a lot of you nerds and dweebs and dorks and geeks and lames have been in the comment section trying to argue with me about it, but you won't show it to me. That's all I asked. Like the whole episode, I did not say that I am not believing it. All I said was I don't believe it presently, but if you can show me something that shows it to me, if you can break it down to me, show me a pie graph, a bar graph or something, a line graph, some sort of chart, statistics, show me what companies he owns, how much those companies are worth, why are they worth that much? Like, just break down the logistics to me. Don't insult me and tell me that I'm not smart. I don't understand economics. What else? What else did I hear? To say he's not influential is retarded. I was called retarded because I'm saying that he's not influential. Now, some of these people agree that his affiliations or the people that he's tied into have some sort of political power and his family has political power. But for me to challenge whether or not his trillionaire status is legitimate is dumb. So what I'm saying to y'all is, even though this was from a couple of shows ago, if you can prove it to me, show it to me, make a video yourself, or just go to my comment section at MadFlo Jr. on Instagram and Facebook, go to the Tribal Kingdom Network or the MadFlo Jr. page on YouTube and literally just break it down to me. What Elon Musk companies are, all of them, list all of his companies, how much are they worth, and where do they get their funding? And then there will be your answer to what you think I'm asking, which is not even me asking if he's a trillionaire. I'm showing you why it doesn't make sense and why it's not real. But that's not what we're talking about today. No. Today we're talking about something a little bit different, right? Where we all live the lives that we live and we quote unquote know the people that we know, you know what I'm saying? And everybody that you know is not your homie, right? Everybody that you know is not a friend of yours. Now, I know people use the term friend, they use it very loosely. They say, oh, that's my friend. Right, especially in like content space, industry dynamics. You know, this person is my friend, that person is my friend. But my grandmama always told me, you ain't got no friends. And if you grew up in a black household, your mama, grandmama, granddaddy, somebody told you that you ain't got no friends. And that was to let you know, don't put too much trust into people. Don't sit back and act like somebody has your best interest at heart just because you know them. Because that's what a friend is. A friend is somebody who not only has their best interests at heart, they have yours as well. And they know how to find a middle ground. They know how to find commonality with you where you can either compromise or you can go into something together to get the outcome that best suit the needs of both people involved, right? If you're dealing with a friend, you and another individual on a one-on-one basis, it has to do with what y'all came together to do and how it benefits both people. Now, your homies is your homies. Your brothers or your sisters' homies is they homies. Your cousins' homies is they homies. Your mother's homie, your father's homies is they homies. Them not your homies. You may know who they are. You may have even hung around them in certain situations. It didn't have to be a family gathering or a picnic. You could have been in the street. You could have been on the block. You know what I'm saying? But the friend of your friend ain't always your friend. And the enemy of your enemy ain't always your friend. You understand what I'm saying? You have to understand politics. And that's really all it boils down to is just how do you politic with people? You know what I'm saying? And like, whether you choose to look at it from the lens of a friend or a foe, more than likely this person you know of has come from some sort of past affiliation or past association, where you knew of this person not because you personally spent time with them, but somebody else that you were around spent time with this person. And just by happenstance or by proxy, you and this other person have now spent time amongst each other and are cordial with each other. And for the time being, right? Because normally this took place in the past. For that time being, it was acceptable to say, no, I'm cool with this person. Even if you use that term loosely, which I do, oh, so-and-so cool, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to get into like semantics and like really break down all of these words. But the fact of the matter is, you can't really go off the past. The past is for suckers. Let's just put that out there. If you somebody who's living off the past, you a sucker. Because the past ain't real. It didn't happen the way you thought it happened or the way you think it happened. It happened the way it happened to end up the way it is now. So if you're somebody who's confused about the present or your present association or affiliation with an individual from your past, it's because you think it happened a way that it didn't. You romanticize the past. Now that can be dangerous. It can be dangerous of us to romanticize the past and go off of past affiliations or past associations with a known individual and call that person a friend or a homie, only for them to disappoint you in the present because you're going off of something that you no longer have a connection to. Sometimes there is a disconnect where everything from the past doesn't always align with what's going on in the present. And you have to know the difference. You have to be able to discern whether or not the past is applicable in a certain situation or it's not applicable, right? That's what NA stands for. Whenever you got a piece of paper, some sort of document, and they're asking you a question, and whatever they're asking doesn't necessarily apply to you, your past, present, or future, you just have to put not applicable on there. And sometimes you have to put that brand or that stamp on the forehead of a lot of people that you meet. Not applicable, not applicable. Not, like they not your homies. It doesn't apply to them. And sometimes you have to stamp yourself where it don't apply to you, where it don't have to be just friends. It could be family members. You know what I'm saying? Let's get a little bit more deep with the association. Some family members are just associates. They're not your friends. They're not your homies because they don't have your best interests at heart. They're not looking out for you necessarily. You know what I'm saying? And as far as those people are concerned, it can be blinding to you, right? Where the past can project future outcomes in terms of like events, right? So, let's use slavery for an example. It's an easy one. The past of slavery has now affected us in the present because that was such a catastrophic event, such a big thing that happened in history that you can't ignore its direct reflections or some of the residue that is now we deal with in the present because it got so deep that it permeated everything. And no matter how many of the layers you try to peel back, you still see it there. So that's something different as opposed to an individual. Now, there can also be something that happened in the past with an individual that will make it difficult to deal with them in the future. For example, if you was in a relationship with somebody and they cheated on you, this event took place where you caught this person cheating. And now in the present, you accuse just about any and everybody you deal with as a cheater, or you accuse them of cheating because of something you dealt with in the past. But there is a disconnect there, whether you like it or not. You don't have to see it, but that doesn't mean it's not present. And more than likely it's because you have been blinded by the past. And so the question that I have today, just to get this thing rolling, is, does everybody from your past fit in your future? And more importantly, do they even want to? Right? Everybody from your past, they can if you make space for them. Like if you personally decide to make space for certain people in your past to fit in your present and be a part of your future, I think it can work. But can in all caps. I mean, it can. It's possible. I don't know how probable it is because certain people from your past may not fit in your present or the future that you're trying to build due to things that are unbeknownst to you and things that are out of their control. Not everything that a person does around you or in the space where you at is intentional. right? Not everybody is deliberately trying to slow you down or stop your progress or to impede upon the things that you are putting into place. Sometimes they just naturally don't fit. A person who is incompetent no matter how you look at it. It doesn't have to be that they're purposely doing something to obstruct or to make it difficult for you to do something. They just don't fit because they're not qualified to be there, right? And I don't know, like sometimes, not all the time, it may have been funny. It may have been amusing to have those people around. And I could certainly attest to that from personal experience. Like I had a homeboy who I don't kick it with like that no more. I don't see him or talk to him. And for the most part, he was funny. And like being around him and like it was jokes 24/7. You know what I'm saying? We ripping and running the street, doing whatever we doing. And he knew how to get money his way. We know how to get, I know how to get money my way. The other homeboys, we was all doing our thing and we was able to come together. It's like quite a few of them, actually, not just one person, where the things that we was doing at the time made sense in the lifestyle that we was living. It made sense as to what our aspirations were at the time, what our goals were at the time. But as we got older and certain things started to take place, whether it's in my life or their life, there was a strain placed on the relationship, just a natural separation that occurs. And they say, what is that, oil and water or some shit that don't mix? It's the same way with people, where sometimes there's a natural separation that occurs due to goals, aspirations, and just different things that are happening in a person's life. For example, I lost my father at a young age, my grandparents, you know what I'm saying? These were very important people in my life, and their loss, right? Me losing them, it placed me in a different category, so to speak. It gave me a whole different thought pattern as to how I'm going to progress in this world and what it is that I'm going to focus on, what's important to me now versus what was important to me before. And those same individuals from the past don't necessarily fit now because I have a completely different understanding of life. So can I call that person my homie? To me, no, right? To somebody else, somebody might say, yeah, oh, that's my homie from back in the day, woo, woo, woo. But because I'm doing something different today, because I got a completely different mindset, I look different, not necessarily like physically, but the way I carry myself there's been an advancement, right? An amplification of the flyness that I always had that is more important to me now than it was back then. And because it is, I can't have you around me if you don't look the part. I can't have you around me if you're not qualified to be in certain rooms. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes it's due to incompetency. Sometimes it's due to the fact that a person is pretty much a joke and you shouldn't take them seriously. And then it also could be due to the fact that this new thing that you're creating, you can't use old parts. You understand what I'm saying? If you construct something brand new and it's comprised of all old parts, you should expect some of those old issues to occur again because you're using old parts to construct something new. And not that you can't, some of those pieces, some of those parts actually fit pretty well into this new thing, but it's only because they also have a future use, a future utility to them, right? Where this other thing, this other part is only good for the past association. It was only good for what you was doing before. It's no longer good for what you're doing today. It just don't fit. It don't work, right? And those who don't want to be a part of your life, right, as it presently stands, to me are no different than the ones who don't qualify to be there. It's the same thing because if somebody is doing something to benefit themselves, but it's also beneficial to people around them and you don't want to be a part of it, it's no different than you being incompetent. It's no different than you pretty much being a person who shouldn't be taken seriously, because what is it about progress that you have an issue with? Like, you think a person will have a personal issue with you because of what you're doing when it has nothing to do with you personally. It has everything to do with progress. And their inability to progress versus your effortless progress, where you're able to progress at such an exponential rate and it looks so easy to them. They don't know what you put in to be able to assess how difficult it is or how difficult it appears to be. All they know is you progressing. You're moving up in the world. Like Coogee Rap said, I'm blowing up in the world, blowing up in the world. I got to get mine. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't see the struggle that you go through. They don't see the strategicness of it all, the strategy that you've employed. All they can seem to see is you're doing better than them. And because you're doing better than them at whatever it is that stands out to them, because you could be better than them at math and they don't care. You know what I'm saying? You can be better at them at following directions and they don't give a damn. They only seem to care about what you're better at than them that's of importance to them. And that doesn't have to necessarily be the same thing that's important to you. You can be better looking than somebody. And because you got bills to pay, because you got things that you're struggling with, you don't give a damn how good you look as compared to the next person because you got real issues. You got real problems, right? You have things that you are trying to overcome, obstacles that you're trying to overcome. You have endeavors that you want to be successful at. But this person can only seem to think about how good you look as comparative to them when they don't have the same struggles you do. They don't have the same responsibilities that you do, right? And if you were to place them in your shoes, they wouldn't be able to perform. Something that you've made look effortless, they would struggle and still wouldn't be able to reach the bar. And that's not important to them. What's more important to them is the fact that you look better. That's all they care about. And because of that, they see that as you progressing something. You're progressing in something that they find important that they can't progress in, and they don't want to be a part of your present or your future for that reason alone. It's not like people are in competition because they're in the same field as you. I'm an entertainer, right? I'm in the entertainment field. So if it's another artist who wants to compete with me because I've presented myself as the standard for something, then I understand that. Right? I understand a person who is doing the same exact thing that I'm doing, which is artistry, one of the things that I'm doing at least, or even somebody who's doing podcasting. I don't necessarily see it as competitive, but that's neither here nor there. Somebody who's in the same field as you, who wants to compete with you, whether you inspire them or maybe they're just using you for motivation. You can be their muse, right? I can accept that level of competition because that makes sense. That's all going to something constructive. It has a productive outcome, right? Potentially, if they were to succeed, but using you as the muse, using you as the thing that the catalyst for their success, I see no problem with that. As long as they're able to compartmentalize it, as long as they're able to separate their competitiveness from the person that they're using, then I see no issue with it. If they conflate it, then it gets to be problematic and toxic, and that's how you can have, issues with a person who you don't even know. But they got an issue with you because they silently competing with you because y'all in the same field. So anytime you see them at an event, at a show, or something that you do and they do, you get like this weird vibe from them. And you kind of not understanding where that's coming from. That's because more than likely they're using you as their motivation, or they're using you as to compete to make themselves better. And I see nothing wrong with that as long as that they're able to separate the two. But there are people who don't do nothing close to what you do, man. Like, it's people who not in your field at all who compete with you on an everyday basis based off of their perceptions, not based off what they know. Because let's say you got two singing people and, singer A and singer B is competing with each other. Well, they both know harmonies. They know melodies. You know what I'm saying? They know tonality, right? They do voice inflections, right? Presumably, both of them go to some type of voice coach or a singing coach or what have you. And they know the specifics in this realm where they can say, oh, this person is better, or I'm better than this person. Or, man, the way they hit that B sharp or the way they hit that, B flat, whatever. They know the terminology to be able to say, okay, this isn't just my perception. It's a point of view, but it's not all perception. It has something to do with knowledge and experience in the subject. But somebody who has no knowledge, who has no experience in the subject, right, in the field, who want to compete with you or give some sort of critique as to what you're doing, that's because they see you as better than them, not because they see what you're doing as an issue. And they have no real knowledge of what you're doing, which makes it all the more problematic, because if you want to use somebody as your muse, as something to motivate you, even if you're not in the same field as them, I don't see why it has to get to this toxic shit. I don't see why it has to go into this problematic area where there's some sort of incident, there's some sort of confrontation, some sort of conflict that arises because of somebody else's, it's straight up jealousy, but somebody else's need to compete with another individual who, for all intents and purposes, isn't a friend of theirs. It's not your homie. You know what I'm saying? If your homie is using you as aspiration or as inspiration or as motivation for them to get themselves to a place where they want to go, I don't see that as being an issue either. Not really. Like, again, if they can compartmentalize and put things into proper perspective, I can see it being productive. I can see it being good for them. As long as, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude. You have to be a very mentally and psychologically strong person to not get confused, because you can confuse yourself, right? You knew for a fact that you were using this person to inspire you because something they either did or said was awe-inspiring. Something you heard them say or something you saw them do inspired you. For example, a friend of mine just got married last October, and he's getting ready to have a baby. And so I texted him on Father's Day. I said, Happy Father's Day. I mean, technically, you know, you're a father, you know, not yet, but gonna be. And I let him know that his wedding inspired me. And he's like, inspired you to do what? I said, it inspired me to not wait too long for me to get married and for me to marry the woman that I truly have love for and I actually see a future with. And it put into perspective not just the fact that marriage is the answer, but time is of the essence. And it's been a lot of time spent doing other things. Like I said, the past is for suckers. And so if you just going off the past and how you spent your time in the past, you're going to miss the future, because right now in the present, you're not thinking about it. You understand what I'm saying? And so I was able to use that as inspiration from this gentleman and let him know about it at the same time. But am I competing with him? Absolutely not. Why would I be? What? Like, how does that even make sense? You know what I'm saying? So you can get inspired by people around you or people that you know or people that you call friend without having to get competitive with them. Because especially if you're not in the same field. Now, he lives in a completely different state. He lives somewhere on the West Coast. He don't even live in the Midwest where I live at. And so I don't even see him enough, talk to him barely. But the time that I was there for that wedding, it was inspiring to me. And that was enough. I didn't have to dig deep into everything else that he doing in order for me to want to aspire to marry. I don't have to do all of that. And what I'm saying is people who make it seem as if they do, that's not really what's going on. It's all jealousy-based, envy-based, and they want something that you have, but they don't want to do what you did in order to have it. And so if it's up to them, they're going to isolate you in a way, but more importantly, they don't want to be a part of your world like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the same people who find excuses not to show up for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, not just in your time of need, really. Like, they'll find excuses not to show up for you in times of need, but also in times of rejoicing, where you don't need them for nothing. You're just inviting them to something so that y'all can enjoy each other's time. You're enjoying your success, yeah, as it presently stands. And you want to share in that with them. You want to share and rejoice, and they turn you down with no good reason, right? They'll make a poor excuse to do so. And it's because they see you as competition, and they're not your homie. They're not your friend. Somebody who sees you in that way and just don't want to celebrate with you. They can't celebrate you. They can't seem to bring themselves to a point where they're actually legitimately happy for you, even if you help them. And that's the other side of the game, where you cannot just be an inspiration to people or a motivation to people or inspire them, but you actually help them, whether it's financially or just ideologically, right? Mentally, psychologically, spiritually, where you talk to people and you have the ability to heal through your words. And there are people who depend on you for that. They depend on you like the doctor, like medicine, you know what I mean? Some sort of elixir, right? Where the words that you speak or the things that you do has somehow chemically changed them, where they're now in a more pleasant state of mind, whereas before they were in turmoil. They were torturing themselves one way or another, feeling sorry for themselves, feeling destitute, feeling like there was nothing they could do about their situation. And then along came you. Here you come, right? Here you come strolling along, cool as can be, say, "Hey man, what's going on?" And they like, "Man, things just ain't planning out." And you like, "Oh, come on, man." And you say some words of encouragement. You let them know that life is like a box of chocolates. And you never know what you're going to get. But you sit down on that Forrest Gump bench and you just talk to them, you know what I mean? And you try to uplift the person, bring them out of their stupor, out of their slumber. And they appreciate it. Or at least that's what they say. But you're only as good as your last meal. You're only as good as the last time you inspired them. Nobody's keeping score except you, right? They keeping a different score. They keeping a score of every time you outdid them. You're not even thinking about that because you're not competing with them. So you don't look at it like you outdoing them. You look at it like you outdoing yourself. You look at it like you're going up, not forward. You're moving up in terms of doing better than you did before. And there is a forwardness to it all. So it's like a line graph, right? It's like a line graph where there's a certain date talking about the past, present, and future, and then there's a certain level. And as you continue to move forward, you're moving up. And you're looking at that as something that is unique to you as an individual, whereas these other people are looking at it in conjunction with what they're doing. And so they have this dual thing going on where they have your progress and they have theirs. And there's a stagnation. There's even a dip in theirs where they were going up and they may have went down due to some unforeseen occurrence, something unavoidable, or just their own negligence or something that they decided to do which just wasn't good for them to do. And they can't separate themselves from you for some reason. Even though you're not with them. Like me personally, man, I spend time at home a lot. You know what I'm saying? Whether I'm working, I got many different hats I wear. I got my hand in many different things. And so I got businesses. I also got a regular job. You know what I'm saying? I got a new puppy. I got a girlfriend. Like I'm busy. I got a lot of stuff to do. I got a property that I own and maintain. I got contractors coming and doing remodeling. Like I am busy. You know what I'm saying? So I am not around people enough to actually compete with anybody, to know what they doing specifically in order to be able to compete with them. And to top it off, I don't watch people on the internet. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the other part of it, right? The people who watch you from the sidelines without objective reasoning, right? They'll watch you from the sidelines with no objective reasoning. It's like, why are you watching me? Why are you watching people in silence? What is your objective reasoning for watching people from the sideline in silence? Not rejoicing with them when they're happy, yeah, and not cheering them on when they're progressing, but just watching. What is that doing for you? Because I don't do it. And so because I don't watch nobody, I don't know what nobody's doing enough to compete with nobody. You understand what I'm saying? And I look at that as the reason why people from your past are not supposed to be in your present, or they're not qualified to be in your future because they have decided to sideline themselves, right? And sometimes it can come across as like you're being ostracized. Sometimes it can come across as if you're being left out. That is not the case. No, Don't think of it like you being left out. You on the field, man. You in the game. You understand what I'm saying? Not just the fact that you in the game, you winning. You conquering the game. You understand what I'm saying? You beating the game as we all know it. And so it's not that you being ostracized and being left out. They're being ostracized. They're ostracizing themselves, man. They're electing to stand on the side and watch you hustle. They're electing to stand on the side and watch you ball out. You understand what I'm saying? That's not a fault of yours. And don't take it like that. Don't take it like you not good enough when you can clearly see that you progressing way ahead of everybody else. Now, somebody who is out of shape, let's just say out of shape. I don't want to say overweight, obese, whatever, because I don't want it to seem like an attack on people who are, they got more of them to give. A whole lot of love. But let's just say somebody who's out of shape. And then a dude comes in who is ripped, shredded, jacked, whatever y'all call it. He buff and all of that. Now, for the dude who actually in shape and he's in the gym or he's in a bodybuilding competition, anything like that, for him to care about the dude on the sidelines who's out of shape and he's not participating, he ain't cheering, you understand what I'm saying? And he not necessarily giving commentary as to what's taking place. For that person who's in the competition, who is buff, who is jacked, to feel he's left out is kind of crazy. Because how are you left out when you the one who making all the plays happen? You making all the shots. You understand what I'm saying? You actually calling the shots. You just can't call shots with them because they've elected to sit this out. And that's kind of how you got to see it. If you somebody, who other people are choosing to either follow, watch in silence, right? Make excuses not to rejoice with, make excuses not to be around. You just have to look at that like you call the shots. You have to look at that like you are the boss of whatever this entity is, whatever this realm this space that you occupy. You the master of it. And if they've chosen to sideline themselves and not be a part of what you're doing, or to not at the very least rejoice with you, then you have to look at them as obsolete. They can't matter. They can't. And you can't go off of the past because that's going to blind you and you're going to romanticize this person. When in reality, this person is your nemesis or something of the sort. Not necessarily a villain, because you don't have to be villainous to be a hater. I'll say that again. You ain't got to be villainous to be a hater. We see villains. We see like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Excellent. They sit and twiddle their fingers and whatnot and plot and plan destruction. It ain't got to always be somebody like that for them to be in that role. You understand what I'm saying? For them to be a hater. And that's what you're dealing with. Somebody who chooses to watch you from the side. They hating on you, homie. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want to rejoice with you in times of rejoicing, times of happiness, because they hating on you. And they don't want to be around you to not just advance themselves, but to, how do I say it? To be a part of what it is that you're doing. They rather sideline themselves, only call upon you when they need you. And again, that's because the competitiveness that they have put inside their head, they self, that they've decided to engage in, they not your homie. They're not your homie. They're not a friend of yours. And do you need friends? Like how deep does friendship have to be? It don't have to be that deep. You understand what I'm saying? But it can't just be surface to qualify as a friend. But I would rather take an associate or somebody I know of who, for all intents and purposes, can rejoice with you. You understand what I'm saying? And don't have to make excuses. They can just say no. I'm more lenient or more prone to have a positive outlook of that person than somebody who chooses this other thing. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be deep, but the people who want to make it deep, and that's the reason why the past is for suckers. You have to kill the past in order for the present to live and the future to survive. You understand what I'm saying? You have to kill the past. It cannot obstruct what you have going on, because the people that's involved with it, they have this outlook of you versus somebody who you just met, who again can be in the same field as you, who again they can use you as a competitive muse or creative muse, right, for their own ends. But they don't have the same disdain, or they're not coming from a place of entitlement, because honestly, that's another part of it. Like, in my opinion, people who want to watch from the sideline, it stems from either something you did wrong in the past or something you refuse to do, right? You might have said no to something, you know what I mean? And now you have this dynamic, right? And they say in order to make progress in this life, one has to pay dues. But who knows what that means? Like, really, like, what does it really mean to pay dues? What does that mean? In my opinion, it means that you did enough by your own standards, right? That you don't have to do nothing else. That's what it means to pay dues, to me, at least. That's my definition, that I did enough. I done did so much, whether it's for this person, that person. It ain't even got to be for a person. It could be for myself in life, where you've done enough that you ain't got to do nothing else by nobody else's standards, that is, by your own standards of whatever enough is. That means you done paid your dues. And as long as you can reconcile that with yourself, you shouldn't have to run it by anybody. You shouldn't have to have it validated. You understand what I'm saying? And that's my opinion. Most of this past affiliation, all of this past ideology come from the fact that somebody may feel entitled to something or to you as a person. And if you basing it off the fact that you've paid your dues, you've done enough, then there's going to be a disconnect there, because they don't see it as it has limitations to it, right? They see it as everlasting, ongoing. You understand what I'm saying? Well, you have to pay dues until you're dead. And I know some people who, in my opinion, paid dues until it killed them. Most notably, my father. Most notably, it is my opinion that the things that my father did for others is what drove him to an early grave. My father died at 40 years old, man. And as a 21-year-old, kid, I didn't see him as being a young man. Not in reality, right? Like, he was my father. So to me, my whole life, he was old. He was old my whole life to me. Even when I was like 5, you know what I'm saying? I thought he was old, you know what I'm saying? But to be 21 years old, and my father's 19 years older than me, for me to be 21 and him to be 40 and he dead, and for me to be 34 years old right now, it's kind of crazy to think about it in that regard. And I can only conclude that the things that he was doing for other people and putting them before himself and quote unquote paying dues without any expiration date. And ironically enough, like, he said something to me, like, I want to say at least a week or two before he died, where he was finished with everybody and everything. All the people who knew him, he was done with all of these. All of you. There was no one person that was exempt. There was no exceptions. All of you. If he dealt with you in any capacity, if he gave you something, whether it was assistance, advice, words of encouragement, if he spent time with you talking about the things that was important to you and doing things that you wanted to do, he was done with you, homie. And he didn't tell you. He told me. He told me because I'm his son. Confidant. Told me a lot of stuff he didn't tell nobody. And even some of those who confidently walk around spewing rhetoric and saying what he said or what he meant, you too. You too. Because it was nothing rewarding for him. All the dues that he paid and all the things that he gave and all the people we call friend did nothing for him absolutely nothing for him. Everything he did for them, none of it was returned. So he paid his dues, right? And your debt has been paid, right? Even if you didn't owe it, right? You paid it forward. And so all the things, let's not even keep talking about my father, but him paying dues wasn't because he owed. He was paying it forward. And I can relate to that. I can relate to paying it forward and not expecting appreciation or accomplishment, but like, how if I pay something forward, how do I still owe? If I didn't owe in the first place, right? I paid it forward, right? How do you still owe? And what do you owe exactly? Like that's the other part of it that people don't want to really get into the details of. If you have to quote unquote pay dues, and whether it's in a certain field of expertise, like they want to make everybody out to be an apprentice, and some other person is some master builder or what have you, and they'll be like, yeah man, you got to pay dues, you know what I'm saying, as it relates to like hip hop. They'll be like, yeah man, I used to carry crates for Grandmaster Flash, I used to carry his records, man, and that's how I paid dues. Or I used to have to go to the shows, and I used to have to stand outside and give everybody whoop 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 in the crowd and whoop whoop out the bam, and then eventually I work my way to this. That's some prehistoric, old school, just non-consequential activity that no longer really matters today, because we're not dealing with the same kind of people. Where people, I don't know this for a fact because not in my lifetime, but maybe at some point, possibly, people had something called gratitude, and they would express their gratitude. They were gracious, right? They appreciated what you did. And so them advancing you to the next level, or, paying out what it is that you paid forward, it made sense and it went together. But not in my lifetime, not in my experience. In my experience, you keep paying until you die. Like I said, my father, he didn't reap none of the benefits, reap none of the reward for all of those dues that he paid forward to people. And just being a nice guy, having a big heart. You know what I'm saying? He was kind of mean, my father, similar to myself, but he was a good dude for all intents and purposes. He was a good person. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of people preyed on him for that, because you can clearly see it. And that's the other part of it. Well, people don't want to rejoice with you, or they make excuses to not show up when you need help. It's because they know you're a good person, man. And they resent you for that, because they not. And there's I don't want to call it an evil spirit, but it is a wickedness that seems to take over people, where they want to take advantage of people who have good hearts. Somebody who has a hard time saying no, who finds it difficult to say no. Like this fella Wallow just came out with a book, and I guess it's something about like just say no or something. Something about the power of the word no and how it's better for you when you know how to tell people no. And that's all good in theory, and you can write it down. People can read it. It could be some sort of mantra. But the reality is, if you're somebody who romanticizes the past, or past affiliations, or past associations, it's going to be difficult for you to say no to somebody who comes from your past. And trust and believe, past is literal. Yeah? So your mother is somebody from your past. Your siblings, your family members, your old friends when you was 10, those are people from your past, whether you like it or not. And people that you meet on your journey, people in your respective field, people who enjoy the things that you enjoy, whether that's art, fashion, music, whatever, that's more so futuristic or present tense. That's not necessarily past tense. So we don't tend to romanticize those people. You know what I mean? Somebody that you met later in life, you're much more decisive when it comes to whether or not you want to affiliate with them, or how soon how like you'll lose that association without feeling nothing. You know what I'm saying? You don't really feel too much about it, feel one way or another about not kicking it with somebody who didn't start with you. Like they said, who ain't a day one, or who ain't get it with you out the mud. But just because somebody was around when you was getting it out the mud, don't mean they was getting it with you out the mud. You understand what I'm saying? If they was getting they self out the mud and you getting yourself out the mud and y'all standing next to each other, it's a movie that came out a while back called Hoes. And I don't know if y'all ever seen Hoes, but everybody who ever seen the movie Hoes know this famous quote. Grandpa, I'm tired of digging. Well, that's just too damn bad. You keep digging. So you could be digging a hole right next to somebody else who digging a hole. Y'all could be in the same camp, Camp 8 or whatever that camp was, but that don't mean that's your homie. The best hole digger, because it comes from a book, and I forgot the name of the author who wrote the book, but we had to read the book Holes coming up because there's a lot of great messages and things in that book. But anyway, it was a fella by the name of Stanley. He went to the camp because they thought he stole some shoes that he didn't steal, right? He fat, overweight kid or whatever, having a difficult time, digging a hole. And it's another boy there who don't talk. He's a mute. His name was Zero. And I forget why they call him Zero. I'm assuming they called him Zero because he was dumb to them or whatever. But they called him Zero. And Zero was the best hole digger in the whole camp. He could finish a hole before you even got halfway down in yours. You know what I mean? And Zero wasn't nobody's friend. You know what I mean? They all standing around each other digging holes, but Zero ain't nobody friend. And so just because you was getting it out the mud next to somebody else who was getting it out the mud, don't mean y'all was getting it out the mud together. Don't mean that they want to see you complete your hole before they complete theirs. They don't want to see you advance before they're ready to advance. So how can they be getting it out the mud with you when you finished before them? When you was done digging your hole before them, did you stop to help them dig their hole? Well, sometimes. But what if they finished before you? Did they stop to help you dig yours? Maybe. I don't know. The point is, you can't romanticize the past and quote unquote getting it out the mud with somebody because they're going to always look at it like you owe, even if you paid it forward. So you have to completely detach from that way of thinking in order for your contributions, in order for your dues to actually make sense to you, because it goes by your standard. You done paying dues when you think you done, when you've done enough that you ain't got to do nothing else. You ain't got to do nothing else. You did it all. You understand what I'm saying? And me personally, I'm somebody that done paid dues and paid it forward since I was 21 and even before then. Some individuals started at 21, some it started before that. Some you've been doing it your whole life, man. You understand what I'm saying? I was a kid who had to literally get it out the mud. I was a kid who was 10, 11 years old delivering newspapers, me and my older brother, so we can have some money. Because we didn't get no allowance. We didn't, barely had clothes to wear to school, right? I'm somebody who, as a kid at 13, 14 years old, had to pick corn to buy myself school clothes. So in the summertime, they bust us out in the cornfields. We'd be out there picking corn. Got hot than a motherfucker. I'm talking about blazing hot. I caught corn rash because it was so hot, I took my shirt off and was walking through that corn, picking that corn, and got corn rash all over my body. If you never had corn rash, it is the worst. Corn rash, it is so itchy. Oh my God, it's so itchy. And you can't scratch it because you're going to spread it. And you got to rub calamine lotion on yourself. Oh man, it is a pain to get rid of. And so you got to keep yourself covered up while you're out there. You know what I mean? That's me at 13, 14. Then 15 years old at McDonald's. Yeah, I said it, McDonald's, flipping burgers and taking orders in order to help my mama pay bills at home. So for some of us, we've been paying dues way before we became adults. And after we became adults, we paid dues even still. Only for certain individuals, whoever they may be, to make it seem as if you haven't paid enough. And it's because they don't have an expiration date for you. They want you to perish at 40. And the only good thing they're going to say is, why did you leave me? You can die at 40 from paying so many dues to people who didn't give you nothing. There was no reward for it. Only for them to cry at your funeral and make it seem as if, again, you failed them because they at your grave talking about, why did you leave me? You failed them because you ain't here to continue paying dues. You ain't here to continue contributing to whatever it is that they feel it's necessary for them to live a qualitative life, but don't know that you was done. Don't have a clue. And so, in my opinion, this paying dues is really just people masquerading as entitlement, or not necessarily as entitlement, but for entitlement. It's a masquerade for entitlement. And you'll never satisfy people who feel entitled to either your success or just you in general, right? They feel entitled to your energy. They feel entitled to your words. You know what I mean? They feel entitled to your presence. And whether or not you give it to them is going to decide how they see you, and whether, because they're already on the sidelines. It has nothing to do with them getting involved, but it has everything to do with whether or not you're going to have pleasant interactions with them. And even still, there's a high percentage chance for them to have a bad day, and the interaction is still unpleasant no matter what you do. So you damned if you do, damned if you don't. The best thing for you to do in that situation is to separate. Just get away from those people, whoever they are. Just get away from them, because nothing good is going to come of it. Out of all the dues that you paid, right? Gratitude does not live in the hearts of men or women from your past. And there are no bounds as to who qualifies for this designation. And I've been studying Carl Jung, and Carl Jung says those who help you slowly resent you for their own inadequacies, right? And they couldn't produce the results that you were able to produce. And so they resent you for that. They resent you for the fact that you were able to do something that they weren't able to do. And the more that you help them, the more the resentment builds. And there is no logical explanation for it other than the shadow self, the part of them that they ignore. And so they're projecting their shadow self onto you because you're not ignoring it, or in your natural state, you reflect everything that they don't, right? Everything good about you or everything that you possess, they don't. And the parts of themselves that they wish were more like you is the part that they neglect. And so because they neglect that part of themselves, you putting that mirror up in front of them and showing them how it's supposed to be done. Hey, let me show you how it's done. What Hov said, I show you how to do this, son. They're going to resent you for that. And it's just a natural phenomenon. It's not something that can be explained or curtailed. The only option you have is to get away from those people, man. That's it. That's the only options you got. And if you were smart, you wouldn't wait for tomorrow. You do it today. Get away from them today. As soon as you can, get away from them. Because all them dues that you paid ain't got you no rewards. It hasn't moved the needle in terms of appreciation or gratitude for your contributions. Ain't moved it not damn bit. And it's redundant, in my opinion, to keep going about it, expecting that to come at some point. It's never going to come. Never going to get it. Never going to get it. You know what I'm saying? Holla at SWV. Or no, who was it? In Vogue, I think. One of them. I think it's SWV. One of them had that, you know what I'm saying? Had that thing going on. And more than likely, if you somebody who's paid dues forward and you contributing to all of these other people, you somebody who is very closely linked to success. You have a successful aura, a bubble of success that you are engulfed in, and that's great. You know what I mean? And the people who have no idea what true success, true wealth looks like, they'll think it's out of your reach. They'll think it's out of the reach of not just you, but themselves. And if you keep reaching for it, well, that also builds a resentment, right? And there are people who live abundantly, you know what I'm saying? And presumably, they live this life without these past affiliations obstructing their view of themselves, where people from their past aren't able to actually make an impact on the way that they're able to live. And I believe it's because of a couple of different things. maybe they separated from those people very early in life because they realized that where they were going and where those people were going were two different places. And if they wanted to live the life that they envisioned for themselves unencumbered, they had to get away from those who may have drugged them down or took them to a different path that wasn't something that they wanted to be a part of. Or simply, they never was around it to begin with. And I'm not saying that the things that I'm talking about don't also plague wealthy, rich people. It do. I'm sure it do. I just think it has less of an impact because they got the success just as much as this other person has. Now, of course, success is relative. So if a person has $1 billion and some other fella has $1 trillion, he may feel he's not successful. But compared to somebody who ain't got but $2 on some Johnny Taylor type time, on the Johnny Taylor side of the game, these last $2, he's doing so much better than. And I came across this video. And I think that it's a profound video. It speaks to this. And I want to react to this video real quick. So we're going to watch this and get an idea of what this is about.
Let's go ahead and get into it. So this is Oak Bluffs, Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard. Now, there is no fatigue here. All right, there's no black fatigue here. There's only beauty. There's only families. There's only professionals. There are only doctors. There are only lawyers. There are only professors.
When he's talking about black fatigue, there's this thing on the internet where people have quote unquote black fatigue, and I believe it's just a code word. It's a coded terminology to say niggas. That's what black fatigue is, basically. And it's not always the ghetto people or the people who are obscene or people who are just causing a ruckus all over the place. I believe that black fatigue is seeing black people in any capacity where they just don't want to see you. So even this fella here, but this is not about being around white people. This is about being around black wealth. So this place, Oak Bluffs, from this gentleman's account, is full of black American people who are successful and wealthy. And there is no black fatigue, which is there is no ratchetness, ghetto-ness. Let's finish.
There are only accountants. There are only finance people. That's what you find down here. Families enjoying themselves. Listen, Oak Bluffs has been a haven of black wealth in this country for 100 years, and I love it so very much. My wife is here. We love it. In fact, I'll be going back home today, but then we'll be back, God willing, in a week to actually enjoy ourselves.
Now listen to that real quick. He said he'll be going back home. So he's not stationary in Oak Bluffs. Him and his wife and their kids, they go to Oak Bluffs, Martha's Vineyard, and I'm assuming maybe they summer there, you know what I mean? And then they go back to wherever it is that they live to do whatever business that they do. But when they go there, they only seeing other affluent, wealthy black people like themselves. And presumably, when he says go back, I don't think he means he's going back to the ghetto. He's just going back to wherever it is that he permanently resides. But also, I don't believe that he's spending time around people who would cause quote unquote black fatigue, because why would you make a whole video about the difference in Oak Bluff and any other place and you actually spend time around these people? It don't make sense. But let's continue.
We'll be spending a week here through 4th of July. It's going to be beautiful. But you know what? If you know how to act, come on down to Oak Bluffs. We'd love to have, at least I would, love to have people coming down seeing this. This is beautiful. You know what? A lot of times in the media, we get inundated with negativity regarding black people. Well, come on down to Oak Bluffs and see what's going on down here. But remember, you got to come down here. You got to know how to act. But I love.
See. So this is very interesting what he's doing. He's saying that you got to know how to act when you come here. That's what he keeps saying. And then he just said that the media inundates us with negative images of black people. But he himself is saying that you got to know how to act. There's a part of that that's personal and a part of that that's perceptive. So the perceptive part is whatever they project out into the media, not just for other black people to see, but for the world to see, and for them to have a certain opinion of us based on whatever it is that they want to amplify about us, the propaganda, yeah? But he has a personal account, I'm assuming, something that he knows of for him to say, you got to know how to act. He's had experience with those who don't, quote unquote, know how to act. Otherwise, why would he make the statement? Let's finish.
it, black wealth, elite black wealth. But you know what? What we don't do is look down on everybody else. What we do is help everybody else because we want more to come down here. Anyways, continue to follow me. I am a professor, a teacher, and a financial coach, bringing financial education to the urban community and beyond. See you soon.
Okay. So he's saying he wants you to come. He's not saying that he don't want you to be there, but you got to know how to act. And what I want him to understand is you can want them to come all you want to, and you can want them to act a certain way, but they not finna do that. They not finna come there because, believe it or not, they're going to accept your invitation. It's too nice for them not to. You understand what I'm saying? It's too nice for them to decline your invitation, but they not going to act the way you want them to act just because you told them they can come. No. All they need is somebody to crack the door open. And once they get in the door, they going to completely disregard the rules. They don't follow the rules. Now, me, I hate to be hypocritical because I'm somebody I don't like rules. I don't like following the rules I don't really follow the rules. I don't. I do what I want to do. But the thing about doing what you want to do, you got to have your own. You got to have your own everything in order for you to do what you want to do. So you can go to Oak Bluffs. You got to own some property in Oak Bluffs. You understand what I'm saying? Or you have to have the money to be able to pay for your stay in Oak Bluffs. Not only that, if you don't want to follow the rules, but you got the money, you can grease some palms. You know what I'm saying? If you're somebody that don't know how to follow the rules, you better have some game. You better have some game about you to be able to charm. You know what I'm saying? Have charisma and let your charismatic presence get people to let you do what you want to do. You got to have some game, man. I know how to get what I want based on knowing what somebody else wants. You understand what I'm saying? And knowing the field that I'm playing on, you got to be able to read the room. So all of these rules that he outlining is not for people who don't know how to read the room. You understand what I'm saying? Knowing how to act. Because he ain't saying you can't do this, you can't do that. He didn't say what you can and can't do. He just said you got to know how to act. So to me, that implies I got to have some game in order to bring what it is that I bring to this place without nobody giving me a hard time. I got to know how to charm, be charismatic, and use my game to lead the way. But the very people that he talking about in terms of black fatigue, they ain't got no game. That's the root and stem. They ain't got no game, homie. And they stay very intrusive and obstructive with the lack of game that they got. They don't care that you don't know they ain't got no game. They ain't even leaning on that. You understand what I'm saying? So that's not who you want to come. But he got a follow-up video. Let's finish with this follow-up video that he got.
So let's get into it. So understanding that I grew up in the mud, this is what it is. A lot of us who grew up, whatever, in the mud, it's hard to see the trees.
He said in the mud. A lot of us that grew up in the mud. This is what I was talking about, right?
In the mud. And it's hard to see the mud from the trees. So us in the mud really didn't understand that there were black people that weren't like us. We all think that they were like us. We definitely did. I definitely did. Now, I was educated out of that. And once I was in corporate and a lot of that stuff, and I had advantages.
See, I knew that he had some experience that predated what he's talking about now. This new lifestyle or this new existence that he has isn't necessarily what he's always lived, because he just sat up there and told you he didn't know about black wealth. He said, quote unquote, he lived in the mud. He said in the mud. We say out the mud, but you know what I'm saying? In the mud. He mean out the mud. And he's saying basically he may have dealt with some variation of poverty or just not having things that other people that he wasn't aware of had, you know what I mean? And it took for him to go to college and corporate and all of this other stuff in order to get some game. This is really what he's saying. He just don't know it. You understand what I'm saying? And it ain't game from the street. You understand what I'm saying? It's knowing how to, quote unquote, act, like he said, in order to not just belong, but to survive in this place that he wants to be a part of.
I got to see a whole nother world growing up besides the one I was living in. So that opened my eyes to like something else, for sure. But a lot of my friends and a lot of people around me in the hood did not see anything different. And we were fed hood, fed hood, fed hood, fed hood. And if you just fed the hood, that's all you think is hood. Then, like I said...
So let's pause that real quick. And it's not just people in the ghetto who get fed hood, as he so eloquently put it, right? It's not just us in the hood who get fed it. Everybody around the world gets fed it. Go to Asia right now in the most eastern parts, and you're going to see them behaving like niggas from the hood. You're going to see the hairstyles. You're going to see the clothing styles. You're going to see the dancing styles. You're going to see the music that they are creating out there based off of Black American hood culture. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to see the tattoos, the gang affiliations. The whole world is being fed Black American hood culture. The whole world is being fed it, not just us. So it's not just that the hood is being fed this. The affluent ones are being fed this. Look at T.I., for example. T.I. is a very successful brother from the hood himself, from Bankhead at west side of Atlanta, Georgia, right? But his kids wasn't raised there. More notably, his son, King. Because when King and his other brother and them was real little bitty kids, T.I. was already rich and famous. They had a TV show that I didn't watch because, you know what I'm saying, what I'm watching it for. But people watched the T.I. TV show when his kids, only for them kids to grow up and still act like they from the hood when they never really was in the hood like that, not to the extent that their father came from it. You know what I mean? So not just the people in the hood get fed hood, rich and famous people get fed hood in order to perpetuate it. Why? That's a whole nother conversation for another day, but let's finish.
Down to Martha's Vineyard, and I was like, I didn't know it was like this. No, I'm serious. I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know y'all rode like this. I didn't know there was legacy like this. I didn't know it was like, I mean, serious. All right. Now, the hard part or the struggle is to make sure once you're out of the mud, or you know what, for people who never were in it, there's Black people who were never in the mud. That's hard for us, a lot of us, not all of us. I don't want to generalize.
Right.
But for a lot of us, it's hard to understand that there were people that weren't in the mud, who weren't in the struggle.
Let's stop it right there. I don't think it's hard for them to understand it. It's just that they don't accept it. It's not that they don't accept the concept of somebody was never in the hood or somebody was never, down bad like they was. They don't accept those people. No, they understand the concept fully. It ain't that hard to grasp. It's easy. It's 1, 2, 3. Like 2 + 2 is 4. We get it. You know what I'm saying? You a rich kid. Your daddy was a rich kid. Your granddaddy was a rich kid. Your great granddaddy was a rich kid. Like, people can understand that conceptually, but they'll never accept you down bottom. They'll never accept you where we at. You understand what I'm saying? And that's only an issue for them if they trying to be accepted by them people, which a lot of people fall into the trap because, like I said, everybody is fed hood. And so if they feeding hood to the world, the Black American experience is a hood experience, right? The Black American culture is a hood culture. And if you don't come from the hood, you feel like you out of place. And so there's 2 things that can happen. There's an automatic rejection of Black people who come from the hood, or there's this insatiable desire to relate to Black people from the hood. It's almost like sabotage, where they'll take this lofty position that they was given for generations and they'll squander it just to relate to somebody who don't even accept you. And it's no different than somebody who come from another country and try to be accepted by white folks, right? Where they'll squander any allied or political relationship with Black folks who are American in order to align themselves with white people who will never accept them. You squandered it, homie. You had a prime opportunity to come to a country that was built by Black American people who will economically support you, but you toss that aside for the favor of white folks who will never accept you. They will use you because you're a useful idiot, but they'll never accept you the same way that niggas from the hood will use you rich folks. Yes, they will. They will allow you to give them programs. They will allow you to give them assistance, but they will never accept you. And that is one of the illest dichotomies here in America, where acceptance is not on the table for a lot of groups of people, but mainly the main 2 groups of people. That's the racist Caucasian, the racist white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and the hood ignorant, not even ignorant, but just hood Black American people who, for all intents and purposes, love the hood, don't like nothing else, and will use whatever resources that you want to give them without giving you anything in return. And they don't just do it to people who come from generational wealth. They do it to people who come from generational aura. Yeah. They do it to people who got nobility in their blood, something that you can't buy. You understand what I'm saying? You got to be born into it. It ain't on you, it's in you to be like this. They don't accept you either, and they will use you until they can't use you no more, or until you dead. Let's continue.
Who grew up kind of elite, who grew up in private schools, who grew up like that. We didn't grow up like that. Now me, I got out of that, and I was able to totally break everything. Now I had advantages, I definitely did. And I could go into my advantages that I had that allowed me to break cycles. Mm-hmm. Because my family, when the Great Migration North left the South.
Mine too.
And my grandparents owned the house. And then we kind of regressed. Mm-hmm. And then now I picked it up, and now I've taken us out of that. And now my kids are like, they think a certain way. Believe me, they do.
That's excellent. Round of applause to this brother. Because what he just outlined, I mean, I don't know nobody who don't have that in their past. You know what I'm saying? Where they family during the Great Migration left the South, went north for opportunities because they built this country. So they should be able to move anywhere in the United States. They didn't move to another country. They try to make it seem like migration, immigrant, migrant. No. That's why the Great Migration is a misnomer. You understand what I'm saying? It's a misconception. They didn't migrate. They lived in this land. To put borders on states, but to say these states make up a lot, it's all deceptive. It's all meant to confuse states' rights, federal rights, what you can do in this state, but you can't do it in this state, and it's still a federal crime. It's all to confuse you, because at the end of the day, if this is one landmass controlled by one government, these small mini governments have no bearing on the larger collective. And so if I'm moving from Mississippi to Chicago, you can't say I migrated to Chicago. I just moved there. You understand what I'm saying? But if you come from China, if you come from Italy, if you come from Poland, if you come from Spain, if you come from Mexico, if you come from Alaska, you understand what I'm saying? You migrated to the United States of America. But the people who are already here, they didn't migrate. That's a misnomer and it's a misconception. But congratulations to this brother for moving his family out of that. But what else is he saying?
So anyways, it's interesting. It's interesting that there are blacks who grew up elite that were not just their elite, but their parents were elite. And their parents were elite. And their parents were elite. For us, we're like, and then for a lot of us who look at that, we're like, we think that they're like white people. No, I'm just being honest. I don't think that. But a lot.
Let me stop him real quick, because I think he says something that needs to be addressed. He says they were elite and their parents were elite and their parents were elite. Well, that's relative, right? What do you mean by that? Now, I know he's talking about it in the financial aspect where they have elite wealth. And sometimes you can have elite spirit, elite energy, elite blood, where it ain't on you, it's in you. You understand what I'm saying? You were born elite, but it had no real bearing on your financial situation. But you had the capacity to be anything you wanted to be. You had the capacity to grow because you were born with an elite status. You were born with an elite bloodline. You were born with an elite aura. Let's continue.
But we're like, oh, why you speak like that? Why do you talk like that? I mean, I speak like that. Do you know what I'm saying? But you understand what I'm saying. There's a lot to unpack here in terms of us, elitism, the mud, everything that's in the middle. Because I believe my friends are all in the middle. They're not elite in a sense like they were in these Jack and Jills. But they're definitely not in the mud anymore. They're like here, almost Jack like from the upper middle class, for sure. right?
Boule
Upper
society.
middle class in Massachusetts, by the way. And that's if you're upper middle class in
Old
Massachusetts,
money.
that ain't that's upper class in other states. Anyways, there's a lot to talk about with this. Continue to follow me as I bring financial education to the urban community to try to get a lot of us on Oak Bluffs, so that because that's what we need to do. We need to be upwardly mobile.
Why?
We need to send the ladder down. Anyways, continue to follow me. There'll be a part 3. See you soon.
Okay, so I want to address that real quick. Why? Why do you want to get us in Oak Bluffs? In order to do what? Like, the people who would aspire to be in Oak Bluffs, they're going to get there if that's what they aspire to do. But if you want the quote unquote black fatigue people or the ratchet people or the niggas out the hood, why do you want them in Oak Bluffs? Why you want them there? Because they don't want to be there. They want to be where they at. That's why they where they at. You just said your family moved from the South, bought a house, lost it, and then you regained whatever it is that you regained, and then you was able to do that with your family. That was something you were able to do as an individual. But all the other people in your neighborhood who got the same story as you, who grandparents came from some of the same places that yours did, they didn't do what you chose to do because they had something else that was either of interest to them or more importance. Or maybe they just didn't have the competence to do it. Again, you basing it off the past and you're romanticizing it. You know what I mean? Because you're looking at it as, I was in the mud. Well, why can't you get out the mud? Because, homie, that's where they supposed to be at. And you wasn't never supposed to be in the mud to begin with. You ever think of that? You understand what I'm saying? And so you can keep doing what you're doing, but you've paid enough dues, homie, where you ain't got to pay no more. And them people that's down there, quote unquote, in the mud that you want to come to Oak Bluffs, them not your friends. They not your homies. So you can't expect them to not only want to see you win or to contribute to whatever this fascination with Oak Bluffs is, this place, this particular place where there are affluent, wealthy people there. That don't mean that those individuals from the mud, as you keep calling it, aspire to be there. And even if you place them there, that doesn't mean that they're going to have the qualitative experience or that they don't have the qualities, they don't possess the qualities in order to be a part of that, which you want them to, you're inviting them to. And I can only assume it's because you have a romanticized fascination with the past. And that's why you keep mentioning it. That's why you keep bringing up the fact that you didn't grow up like this. You didn't grow up like that. You didn't know that these people existed. You thought only white folks. Woo, woo, woo. You have a fascination with your past. But it doesn't prohibit you from doing what you need to do. It's not prohibiting you from succeeding, right? For going after the things that are important to you and you made it to where you made it to. You have to disconnect from the rest of them, though, because they'll never be. And the new people that you've met, the new affiliations that you got, the new associations, that's real. The past, it ain't. It never even happened. Those people that you was in the mud with don't exist. Not in its present form, they don't exist. A friend of yours who you used to play with back in the day, you used to run with back in the day, if you were to look at them today, they would almost be unrecognizable. Maybe got bad teeth. Whereas when y'all was kids, you used to be like, man, you ain't gonna brush your teeth, but it wasn't a big deal. Now that you see him as a grown man, you like, ugh, I don't want to sit here and talk to homie for too long because guard your grill. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe they don't got the best hygiene. They stink, you know what I mean? Or you can't have an intelligible conversation with them because they're not able to intellectually keep up with you. And you don't want to talk about dumb things. You don't want to talk about meaningless, worthless things. And you don't want to talk about remember when. Do you remember the time? It's a good song. It's cool. You know what I mean? It's catchy. You got a nice rhythm to it. But I don't want to hear about, do you remember the time? No, I don't. Because it didn't really happen. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't even know you. Who are you? I don't know you. Let's not presume to know each other. Because you're going to presume to know me and you're going to neglect the achievements that I've made, the accomplishments that I've made. Because you want to remember the time. And if I'm trying to remember the time, I'm going to neglect the bad decisions that you've made. I'm going to neglect the way you be looking upside my head when I ain't really looking. I'm going to neglect those little micro aggressions in your face. Your face tighten up a little bit when I say something you don't like. Or your face tighten up a little bit when you see my face. When you see my outfit, you see my clothes, you see my style, you dig? When you see this nice fancy doodah that I walk in, I'm going to miss all of that. Because I remember the time when you... You see what happened to Mike? That's a whole other thing for another day. You know what I mean? But I'm going to get up out of here, man. I just got to let y'all know. The past ain't real. The past is for suckers. Your homie is not your homie. Your brother's homie is not your homie. Your sister's homie is not your homie. Your cousin's homies is not your homies. Your daddy's homies, it's not your homies. And if you done paid dues, you only got to pay enough to where by your standards, you don't have to pay no more. And hopefully you can live a qualitative life and do your thing. Do you remember the time?